Good morning. It's a gloomy day here in Southern California. We're doing the June gloom thing a little bit early. It's May, and boy, was it a boring week. I'll tell you all about it. So this week, we had a quiet weekend. Our big activity was playing Settlers of Catan with the whole family. This is a new game that Juliet and I have been introduced to. Sam and William have played it before, and they usually just cream us in this game. And finally, I think Julia and I kind of caught on to what was going on. So that was fun. But let me tell you, that was the most exciting thing that happened all week, at least to me, because I'm in that stage of life where boring weeks are the objective, right? We don't need drama. We don't need events. We don't need parties. We just like doing our thing. I don't know about the rest of you, but I am such a schedule person. I guess schedule isn't the right word. Routine is the word. I know on Mondays I do this. On Tuesdays I do this. On Wednesdays, it's a day off because obviously I need a day off from all the other days that I have off. Thursday, things happen. I have a scheduled meeting with a friend and other things. Friday, we film the GH podcast. I go to bed at a certain time. I do things in my bed in the evening. Boy, that sounds worse than it is. The things I do in my bed in the evening are watch TV and knit and listen to my books. Oh my God, Leanne, is this going to be one of those? Apparently it is. I am a person who loves my routine. I don't think I'm unusual in that. And I do think that the older you get, the more a routine becomes important for you. If you have a routine thing that you do, and when it gets changed or shifted, you get a little discombobulated, let me know in the comments, because seriously, I can get myself so turned around and upside down if the thing that's supposed to happen on Monday happens on a Thursday, because, oh boy. So I want to talk about books right now, because that's something I talk about on this podcast. I finished The Other Bennet Sister that I talked about last week. This is a spinoff from Pride and Prejudice. It really ticked a lot of boxes for me. I'd give it a solid B+. It was a very easy listen and nothing extraordinary about it, except if you're a Pride and Prejudice person, you will probably enjoy that, as well as all the other Pride and Prejudice sequels, prequels, and spinoffs. I also started the next book. I think this is number 4 in the Hawthorne and Horowitz series by Anthony Horowitz. If you remember, this is the series where Anthony Horowitz, the author, is a character in his own book. And in this book, he's the one being accused of murder. So this is fun. I'm about halfway through. It's a super fast, easy listen. But the book I am most excited to share with you is one that I discovered from a Substack that I recently follow. This woman, I forget the context of the article. I just remember she had a picture of the cover of this book. I mean, look at this picture. It's gorgeous. So welcome to Glorious Tuga. What a fun find this was. I knew I wrote a thing on Substack after finishing 10% of this that I knew it was going to be good, and I was right. It was a book I looked forward to turning on. It was a book that I wanted to return to because I love the people. And it's a book that falls into the category of books about communities or large casts where someone or something changes them for the better. So Welcome to Glorious Tuga is about a mythical island in the South Caribbean, out in the middle of nowhere. It belongs to England. And these people are pretty isolated. And so we learn about the culture of this island. We learn about the people who come and go from the island and their seasons of things that they do. I love this book. The main characters are a veterinarian who's there to study tortoises but accidentally takes care of the sheep. A doctor who is returning from England, about to take his place in Tuga again, and yet is feeling quite not a part of the culture or community anymore, and various other miscellaneous characters who are all wonderful. The best part of this book is it's the first in a trilogy, and the second book, called Island Calling, comes out next month. And I can't believe my luck at having read this now so that I can move on to the second book and then, of course, wait very impatiently for the third book and then pray she decides she wants to keep going. The author is Francesca Segal, and she's written many other books as well. And I have to tell you, this was a delight. A+, no notes, loved it. And it got me thinking two things. It got me thinking about a book I read several years ago, I think in 2022, called Still Life, not the Louise Penny Still Life, but Sarah Winman. And I had read this, and so a thought occurred to me, that book has a very similar flavor to the Tuga one, although one takes place in Italy, and the other one takes place in Tuga. It's the concept of the chosen family and how we come together as a chosen family. And these books are just wonderful. So Still Life by Sarah Winman, like I said, I read it about 3 years ago. I'm going to do something I rarely do. I'm going to read it again because I know it's the sweet spot of exactly what I need to read right now. I loved it. And that got me thinking to some of the other books I have loved that involve communities of people being changed by a thing or a person. A book I would throw into this category of chosen family working together is unexpected in this list, and it is The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. This is a historical fiction. If you've never read any Kate Quinn, I cannot recommend her enough. She is one of the queens of historical fiction, and this book is no exception. This takes place in the 1950s, McCarthy era in Washington, D.C. This is a boarding house, and again, chosen family come together, and it's so well done, and it's a great mystery. I recommend that book 100%. Also, anything else that Kate Quinn has written, because she is amazing. So we have Still Life, The Briar Club, and now we're going to talk about a book I've mentioned before, which is Winter Solstice. Again, a book about chosen family and how coming together can impact the whole for good. Just that sweetness of deep fellowship. And you know how much I love that book. A book that was released as a romance, and yet everyone was like, holy cow, this is so much more than a romance, is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This book blew everyone away. Nobody saw this one coming. It's a story about a woman who has just broken up, and she's broken up with someone, and she's considering suicide. So she books herself a room at this hotel, and oh dear, there's a wedding also taking place at the hotel, and things ensue. She doesn't commit suicide. And people were like, I can't read this. It's about suicide. It's not about suicide. It's about redemption and finding the people who will change your life. The Wedding People, I highly recommend it. Such a great book. How to Read a Book by Monica Wood. Another one. This is a wonderful story of a bookshop. If readers love books about books. And this is one of those books. And again, chosen family, how we come together to make changes in our lives. I loved this book so much. Again, another one that people were taken by surprise as to how beautiful and deep it was. And one of my favorite books that I read, I think it was last year, is No Two Persons by Erica Baumgartner. Another book about books. But this takes one book and 9 people. Each chapter is about how a different person is impacted by this book. Now, this is probably not chosen family because they don't really all interact with each other completely, but it is a beautiful book about how someone's gift to you can change your life. And I enjoyed the heck out of these books, and I hope you enjoy them as well. I think it's important that we find books that bring us joy and peace. Now, what brings me joy and peace is very different from other people. For example, my best friend loves police procedurals and mysteries that are kind of a little bit more gory than me. She loves it. That's what works for her. More power to her. The people who read true crime, who love the gore, who love horror movies and horror novels, if that's what gets you to a place of peace and distracts you from what's going on that upsets you, hey, read it. I don't care. I'm just sharing suggestions of things that have worked for me in the past because, hey, I've read a lot of books. Maybe I can recommend something that will be meaningful to you. Speaking of meaningful, I finally finished my Ukraine sock. Okay, this is hard to show this way. Let me take it off this because there are 3 of these wonderful symbols. And so this is the front of the sock. What I did is when I was designing this sock, I said to myself, I want to knit a sock that shows my support for Ukraine. I want to knit a sock that would have a Ukrainian symbol on it, and obviously the colors of Ukraine. So I looked it up, and this torch, this flame, is a symbol in Ukraine. And so it's on the sock 3 times. Yay! But it got me thinking about knitting as activism, knitting, or just any craft. And I use that word with great hesitation because that's a sort of derogatory and demeaning term. Is this a craft? Yes. Is it art? Also, yes. I was thinking about how women, and men too, but mostly women, have used their skills, their cottage skills, if you will, to protest or to be an activist or to make a statement. Allow me to remind you about pink pussy hats. I'm gonna knit them for the pink pussy hats, right? Everybody knit one of those as a response to all of the things that were going on against women. Maybe we need to bring them back. I don't know. And so I thought about this. Now, knitting a sock is not going to change the situation in the Ukraine. I know that. But I know that by doing something like this, sharing it, because yes, I'm going to post a picture of this on all the knitting boards with the pattern. Sharing something like this brings people's attention to these things. Artists have used fashion, things that we wear, as statement pieces for forever and ever, right? And so I was raised understanding that knitting and sewing and painting and these kinds of things were not just practicalities to save money. Yes, when I was a little girl, I sewed my own clothes because it was much less expensive than buying a dress. In fact, I have a memory of I used to get a clothing allowance from my mom. I got $10 a month for my clothing allowance because I was a teenager and I wanted clothes. $10 a month, you guys. I would spend my money on fabric and patterns because I made my own clothes. That was much easier. It was cheaper. I could wear whatever I wanted, right? And so I have a very clear memory of saving my money to go to the department store to buy a dress. And I was horrified because I was buying a dress that was $33. Can you imagine? God, I'm old. Sewing, as I grew up, became more than just making clothing. It became making clothing that was artistic. And my daughters will tell you that I did the horrible thing of dressing them alike as children. They're 8 years apart in age. You can imagine how thrilled my older daughter was when she had to dress like her baby sister. But I loved it. I took sewing classes. I learned cool techniques like pleating and scrunching. It's been a while, can you tell? And I used these things to make clothing for my children that I felt was artistic. And also during this time, I was, oh, snark puppy. Pondy, leave it. Also during this time, I was absolutely glued to Project Runway. Do you remember that show? I think it's back on now. But it was Heidi Klum and Michael Kors, and they'd give these designers various challenges, and they'd have to go to these wonderful fabric stores and pick out fabric and dress their models. And I found that so fascinating because for me, sewing was taking this fabric and this concept of a design and manipulating it so it became something not just that I could wear, but something that would be unique and fashionable and art that spoke to who I am. So I love watching Project Runway, and I loved seeing the creativity that went into that. And I was one who didn't have a hard time understanding how things fit together in a garment. My mom taught me. Remember my mom, the genius, the mathematical genius? Well, she put herself through UCLA by sewing children's clothes for Bullock's Wilshire, which was a very shishi store back in the day. So she learned all these super cool sewing techniques, which she then taught me, which were very much not the way the pattern ever told you to construct things. So I learned to sew through my mother's brain, which rarely made complete sense to me because we're talking about a whole different strata here. But that's how I learned. So as I was scrolling this morning and thinking about things we could talk about on the podcast today, I saw the pictures from the Met Gala. The Met Gala is something that is just an annual phenomena of fashion. And so I thought I'd do a deep dive and figure out what the heck is the Met Gala, because there were these pictures of people in very cool outfits, but I didn't understand who these people were. And, you know, it's not just celebrities in the sense of people who've made movies or on television. It's music makers, it's Broadway stars, it's theater stars, it's music stars, and many of these people I don't know. So I was looking at pictures of very beautiful people in very cool outfits that I had no idea who they are. Not to worry. So the Met Gala apparently, because I Googled it, raises money, Metropolitan Museum's fashion wing. And this is a very important historical museum, right? We think about, oh yeah, I want to go see the Mona Lisa, or I want to go see Rembrandt, or I want to go see this or that. But hey, fashion is art too, right? We were just talking about that. So these people, these celebrities, or people who can afford to pay the entry price and donate money, also can afford to hire a designer to make them wholly ridiculous clothing. Now, I say ridiculous, and yet some of these are not ridiculous. So the theme this year was Superfine, tailoring Black style. And tailoring was definitely a theme. As you can see, we tailored jumpsuits, we tailored dresses, we tailored corsets, we tailored things that I can't even explain, but very cool. And I read an article from a woman who, I think she works for Instagram, and people were asking her, what happens on the inside, right? Because cameras are not allowed. Well, first of all, she said it's a dinner, and it's not just, you know, your typical buffet gross dinner. It's usually some A-list chef that they bring in. And this woman was mentioned the chef for this year, and she said she was really looking forward to the food. It's an opportunity for people to see one another. For example, people in the fashion industry don't hang out on a daily basis, right? So they get to see one another, and they get to see people across various industries that they know or have heard of. So it's very much a congenial kind of experience. This made me think again about how fashion is used for activism as well. And although this year it wasn't quite as much, in the past, the Met Gala has been the vehicle for people to make protests about things. And hey, more power to them. Not everyone can get in the street and march. Not everyone can make phone calls to their congressman for various reasons. Not everyone can do what everyone else does. So we all need to find our own way of sharing the things that are on our heart. And that doesn't necessarily mean political things, right? It could mean anything from autism awareness, pride celebrations. For example, last Christmas, I knit my daughter a pair of rainbow pride socks because she's the DEI officer at her company and is very involved in pride. These are things I'm going to be thinking about as I move forward in my knitting. What is my knitting saying about me? Am I just a consumer of yarn and making pretty socks? Which is perfectly okay if that's what it is. And if I can use my socks to promote subjects I'm interested, wait, I'm not going to use my socks for anything except socks. But if I can make my heart happy by knitting something that's meaningful to me, I will. Old woman feels she can change the world by knitting socks. No, that's not the situation. I have no fantasies about changing anything except the way I move through this life. I am so over that. Something to think about. Art as activism, crafts as art, and doing the things that make your heart happy and that feed you. That's what we're here for, right? Anyway, I hope you have a great week. I hope nothing exciting happens to you, unless you want it to.